encourage you to read over the quiz first and use it as a reading guide, and also use these videos to help you locate the information in the very long readings. So the quizzes all have multiple attempts, which means it only saves your highest score. And these questions, like I said, are the questions I also use for exams. So the Exodus story is secular and not just sacred, meaning that it has political inflections, and it is more than simply a Bible story, because it is a Bible story that has been applied to the experience of Africans in the Americas in particular. So I'm pretty sure that is the right answer. Salvific history is when you use the Bible or the promises of salvation to understand the past. And Eugene Genovese is a white African American studies scholar who wrote some really important works about slavery. His wife Elizabeth also wrote some great books. But as a Marxist and as someone with a somewhat outsider view of African American studies, Genovese makes a lot of assumptions about the role of religion, and Glaude sets Genovese straight on those assumptions. So one of the things that Glaude critiques in Genovese's work is that Black Christianity blocked the way to political consciousness. If we think about Martin Luther King, if we think about Malcolm X and Islam, the idea that religion or spirituality could block political consciousness is a little bit crazy. What Glaude's argument is that Black Christianity gave the slave a sense of her own worth before God and others and helped her to act as a self-determining agent. So one thing that's difficult about reading academic writing is that academics often foreground arguments by other scholars that they disagree with and then explain why it's wrong. So it might seem contradictory to you, and it's difficult to read for that reason, because number 3 here is actually Glaude's argument, because he disagrees with Genovese that Black Christianity blocked the way to political consciousness. Black nationalism is very different from white nationalism, and we'll see that in the reading. So Glaude is a little critical of Black nationalism. So if we think of Black nationalism, or the unity among Black people in the United States, as a way to organize ourselves because of the color of our skin, and we're all interested in ending discrimination, then we are looking at racism's definition in order to organize Black nationalism. Race is the child of racism. Therefore, if Black nationalism is based upon having black skin, then Black nationalism is based on the way that whites define Black people, right? So Glaude does not like that idea. And instead, he wants people to think about Black nationalism is a way to organize ourselves around common problems that we can solve. Therefore, you can have a Black nationalist perspective, and you can work toward Black nationalism, problem solving, regardless of your skin color. And it's important to have allies, of course, in any important political project. So I think that this is a direct quote from W.B. Du Bois. It's pretty simple. Cultural nationalists are people who believe that Black people are distinctly, almost magically different from others. And I might be wrong about that. We'll see when we look back at the reading. Nation language is another moment that Glaude disagrees with Wilson. And once all of these things are ways that Glaude says Wilson Moses misunderstood. I'm making a video for my students, so if you too don't want to go to the babysitting place all day, I would suggest you get out of here and stop it right now. Because the next time you interrupt me making this video, I'm taking you to the babysitting place and I'm getting you when it's dark time. Sorry. Not only are I a chipmunk in my house, I have 5-year-old twins. So then Glaude ends on a more positive note. So you can save and submit your answers. You click on OK, and you see how you did. Hopefully I didn't get any wrong. I did. I have to double check that answer. Anyway, you print this out, and as you go through the reading, you look for the answers to this question, you read about these particular issues, and that helps you to understand the important points that we want to learn about Black nationalism, religion, politics, and how they work in African American studies. Okay, 28 pages is a lot. That's why I'm making this video for you, to help you navigate. So even if I end up making an 18-minute video, I think it will take you a lot longer to read this on your own and, really fully digest it. So if you don't have time to read it all and you gloss it and watch the video, do what you need to do to learn the material. I offer lots of strategies for learning. And before I forget, if you ever want me to make podcasts or recordings of any of the material so you can listen to it rather than reading it, just hit me up and I'm happy to do that. So part 1 in Eddie Glaude's book, Exodus, has a quote from a spiritual and a quote from the Bible. The idea of strangers in a strange land. And here we have the answer to the first question. To locate the idea of freedom among African Americans within a religious space blurs the line between the sacred, or religious, and the secular, or political. Salvific history, which he has just described, that the Exodus story informs African American experience and identity, is using the Bible to understand our background. And then the journey transforms the community of Israel. Another important point. Here we have Glaude's point that Black Christianity gave the slave a sense of her own worth before God and others, and enabled her to act as a self-determining agent. Black Christianity was about the spiritual emancipation of the individual, which was the necessary foundation for Black collective action. So this is what Glaude has to tell us about the importance of Black Christianity. Over here are some of the ideas that Genovese developed that Glaude takes issue with. Slavery made people feel bound together, but Genovese assumes that slavery also made people feel like they were a distinct and chosen people, different from any other people. So here we have the 3 points of Waltzer's account, Michael Waltzer's account of radical politics and democratic community through the Exodus story. He begins the book with a description of a Black preacher giving a sermon about Exodus, the story of being in Egypt, going to the Promised Land. And there are 3 important features in Waltzer's account. So topic sentences like this are important, and whenever you see a scholar say there are 3 important things here, you need to underline them. The nation is formed out of remembrance of oppression and liberation. The community understand themselves as active agents, not simply as former slaves. And 3, the nation has a sense of itself in relation to other nations. So those are 3 important points that Waltzer makes. Then the question becomes a question of racial solidarity through the Exodus story. And that Black nationalism equaled racial solidarity. Glaude is going to tell us that Black nationalism is much more than racial solidarity. But he worries, and this is a quiz question, if Black nationalism only means that people have a common condition of skin color and oppression. What he wants to tell us is that Black nationalism is a problem-solving strategy. Therefore, it's very different from white nationalism. White nationalism is about racial purity and shared blood, and the only problem they want to solve is to destroy Black people, and I don't really call that problem solving, and sane people don't. But the problem solving that we see through Black nationalism is something that we can apply to people who are not Black or of African descent. Although Black people may share a problem, that doesn't make all Black people the same. And also, Black nationalism creates problem-solving strategies. For example, Dr. Martin Luther King compiled some of the strategies of Gandhi for civil resistance, and King's strategies informed civil rights groups from a variety of backgrounds. Malcolm X's problem-solving strategies have to do very much with economic development and self-sufficiency within the Black community. So, this is about a common problem and problem solving. This isn't just about people of one bloodline destroying people of another bloodline, which is essentially what white nationalism is. So cultural nationalists say that Black people have a specific form of life, some kind of magic quality within that makes them permanently and irreparably different from white people, and that white people can never have this quality. That's what we call cultural essentialism as well, and Glaude finds that problematic. There, I don't want to sound like Donald Trump, God forgive me, but there are Black people who are not activists and who are not working for the community and whose moral compass is off, just like there are white people whose moral compass is off. And part of what Glaude is saying here, that someone like me, and I don't expect you to trust me or believe me yet about this because you don't know me and you shouldn't, but I can become a Black nationalist because I can try to solve problems of inequality. And then I can extend those strategies of inclusion, community, and a different way of building the world to work for people who are Latino, people who are multiracial, people who are women and women's particular issues. And one way that Black nationalism has always contributed to others in the world is that women and white feminists have borrowed ideas and practices from Black nationalism. So there are different ways we can think about race in nation language. Classical Black nationalists believe that the hand of God directed their movement. Princes shall come out of Egypt. Ethiopia shall soon stretch forth her hands unto God. And that is the convention of comparing the condition of African Americans to Israelites in Egypt. Moses finds this chauvinistic, and Wilson Moses says that Blacks believe themselves the chosen people, and Glaude is going to critique Wilson Moses respectfully, saying that it is not about having an innate characteristic, it's about having a shared experience. The hardline messianism is the same as white supremacy. Softline messianism is based on Jeffersonian ideals and the Enlightenment. African Americans came into this tradition differently, and Glaude's main argument is that African Americans, having been oppressed and very often still oppressed, are not simply looking to do the same thing to others. African Americans are trying to make it so that those kind of things never happen again to anybody. And that's what distinguishes the Black nationalist tradition from white supremacy. And again, the argument that biological similarity is not what makes you black. There is not an essential racial self. There is an experience and a shared problem solving desire to make sure that things like racism stop and don't happen to anybody else. So I think that covers everything that's on the quiz for us. And there's a lot more wonderful work here from Eddie Glaude if you just want to look over it and learn a little bit more about religion and history. But I know it's tough going, and I know this was a long video, so I hope this helped you navigate. And if you have any other questions, hit me up. Have a great day. Hopefully, I will find that chipmunk.